Welcome to HFY Genesis. Today we dive into a tale of defiance and resilience as humanity uncovers the shocking truths hidden by the Galactic Council. Can humanity rise against an oppressive intergalactic authority? Let's begin. The darkness of the cosmos stretched infinitely around Dr. Evelyn Kade as she sat alone in the observatory's control room. The low hum of the machinery and the occasional beeps from the instruments were the only sounds. Her weary eyes scanned the data streaming across her screens, hoping for something, anything to justify the sleepless nights. The whispers of conspiracy had started months ago, with astronomers in the outer colonies reporting strange anomalies near the fringes of the solar system, entire survey ships disappearing without a trace, and faint encrypted signals pulsing from uncharted space. Evelyn had tried to dismiss it as background noise or tech malfunctions, until tonight. A pattern emerged, subtle yet unmistakable. The signals weren't random. They carried structure, an order too deliberate to be natural. Evelyn's pulse quickened as she aligned her algorithms to decode it, her fingers trembling slightly over the keyboard. Then, the message revealed itself in broken fragments. Humanity. Control. Agenda in motion. Stop them. Her heart raced. The Galactic Council, the same body that had declared itself the protector of peace and order across the universe, was implicated in the cryptic plea. She leaned back in her chair, the implications sinking in. Were the disappearances tied to this? Could humanity, barely more than a fledgling member of the Council, be a pawn in something far greater? A voice broke her concentration. "Still burning the midnight fuel, Doc?" She turned to see Captain Adrian Voss, leader of Earth's Space Command, standing in the doorway. His uniform was wrinkled, and his stubbled face betrayed an equal lack of sleep. "Adrian," she said, motioning him over. "You need to see this." Voss approached, skeptical. "Another signal?" "This isn't just another signal," Evelyn said, turning her monitor toward him. "It's a warning." He leaned closer, his brow furrowing as he read the message. "Control? Agenda? This is coming from a council relay?" "Yes," Evelyn replied, her voice tight. "But it's not official. It's like someone's trying to leak information through the council's encrypted network. If this is real, it changes everything." For a moment, they were both silent, staring at the screen. "You realize what this means, right?" Voss finally said. "If the Council finds out you've accessed this, you'll be labeled a traitor. Hell, they might come after you." "I know," Evelyn said, her voice steady. "But if there's even a chance this is true, we can't ignore it. We've spent decades trusting the Council's benevolence, and look where that's gotten us. Strip-mined resources, stifled innovations, and now, people vanishing." Voss ran a hand through his hair. "If this warning is legitimate, we're not just up against one alien race. We're up against an empire spanning 100 star systems. Do you have any idea what that means for Earth?" Evelyn met his gaze. "It means we have to act, before it's too late." Hours later, Evelyn and Voss stood in Space Command's darkened briefing room. A holographic map of the solar system floated before them, glowing faintly in the dim light. "This is where the signal originated," Evelyn explained, pointing to the hologram. "A council relay station on the far side of Europa. It's supposed to be decommissioned, but these coordinates suggest it's still operational." "And these?" Voss asked, gesturing to several blinking points near Neptune. Evelyn hesitated. "Those are the last known locations of the missing ships. Whatever's happening out there, it's centered around the outer solar system. My guess is the relay station is key." Voss crossed his arms, his jaw tightening. "If we're going out there, we need to be ready for a fight. The Council doesn't tolerate snooping, especially from protectorates like us." "You think they'd attack one of their own?" Evelyn asked, though she already suspected the answer. "If it protects their agenda, without hesitation." The room fell silent. Evelyn felt the weight of the moment, the risk they were about to take, the lives it could cost. but she also felt a deep, unshakable resolve. For too long, humanity had been the youngest sibling in a family of giants, expected to obey without question. "Are you with me on this?" Evelyn asked, her voice softer now. Voss didn't answer immediately. He stared at the hologram, the flickering lights reflecting in his eyes. Then he nodded. "You're damn right I am. If the Council's hiding something, we're going to uncover it." The Europa Gambit. The starship Resolute cut through the darkness like a blade, its engines burning bright against the void. Evelyn and Voss stood on the bridge, the tension palpable as they approached Europa. "Status?" Voss asked his helmsman. "Approaching the relay station," the helmsman replied. "No signs of Council activity, yet." Evelyn felt a knot of anxiety tighten in her chest. The relay station loomed ahead, a skeletal structure silhouetted against Jupiter's vibrant, swirling clouds. It was eerily quiet, its usual beacons dim. "Something's not right," she muttered. As the Resolute moved closer, the station's systems seemed to come alive. Red lights began to pulse along its surface, and a low-frequency signal reverberated through the ship's comms. "Captain, we're being scanned," the helmsman reported. "Shields up," Voss ordered. "And keep us steady. Let's not look hostile, yet." Evelyn's fingers danced across her tablet, accessing the station's network. The data streams were encrypted, but she quickly bypassed the first layer of security. Her heart pounded as she uncovered a hidden database, its files labeled with ominous titles. Project Ascension, Human Integration, Resource Allocation, Earth. Before she could delve deeper, the ship's alarms blared. "Multiple contacts inbound," the helmsman shouted. "Council ships, 3 frigates, closing fast." "Damn it," Voss growled. "They're not giving us a chance to explain." The first salvo from the Council frigates streaked toward them, bright blue beams that lit up the void. Voss barked orders, and the Resolute rolled hard to port, narrowly avoiding the barrage. "Evelyn, how much time do you need?" Voss yelled over the chaos. "I'm almost there," she shouted back, her hands trembling as she copied the files to a secure drive. Another blast rocked the ship, and sparks flew from an overloaded console. The bridge filled with smoke and the acrid smell of burnt wiring. "Shields at 50%, the helmsman reported. "We can't hold out much longer," Voss snapped. "Evelyn, we need to move." "Got it," she yelled, pulling the drive from her terminal. "Helmsman, get us the hell out of here," Voss ordered. The Resolute veered away from the station, its engines roaring as it entered a desperate, evasive maneuver. The Council frigates pursued, their weapons lighting up the void. Evelyn clutched the drive tightly, her mind racing with the implications of what she'd found. As the Resolute disappeared into the asteroid belt, Evelyn turned to Voss. "This is just the beginning," she said. "Whatever the Council is hiding, it's bigger than we ever imagined." Voss nodded grimly. "Then we'd better be ready, because they're not going to let us expose it without a fight." Question is, what would you do if faced with overwhelming forces determined to silence the truth? Would you risk everything to reveal it? Enjoying this story? Don't forget to like and subscribe to HFY Genesis for more epic tales of defiance and discovery. The Resolute drifted through the vast emptiness of space, engines on standby to minimize its signature. Evelyn Kade sat in the dimly lit command room, her fingers trembling over the encrypted data drive she'd taken from the Council relay station. The room felt stifling despite the artificial atmosphere. Her mind churned with questions she couldn't yet answer. The data she had retrieved whispered of secrets too vast to comprehend. Words like Project Ascension and Human Integration lingered in her thoughts like specters. What did it all mean? And more importantly, why humanity? She glanced at Captain Adrian Voss, who stood on the bridge, his eyes scanning the endless void outside the viewport. His jaw was set, his posture tense. He'd always been a man of action, not contemplation, and the weight of what they'd uncovered clearly strained him. "We're sitting ducks out here," Voss muttered, breaking the silence. The Council isn't going to let this slide. They'll hunt us down. It's only a matter of time. Evelyn nodded, but didn't respond. Her focus was on the task ahead, decoding the data drive to understand what they were truly up against. Still, she felt the unease gnawing at her. They had escaped the relay station, but at what cost? How long before the Council's ships found them again? Hours later, Evelyn and Voss huddled in the ship's secure lab. The holographic display projected streams of alien text and diagrams spinning slowly in the air. Evelyn had made progress in decrypting the files, though the fragmented information painted a disturbing picture. "This here," she said, pointing to a series of interconnected nodes on the projection, "is a list of technologies, some of them centuries ahead of anything on Earth." Voss furrowed his brow. "And the Council's been sitting on them?" "No," Evelyn said, her voice laced with bitterness. "They've been suppressing them. Look, advanced energy systems, automated medical nanites, AI capable of independent innovation, all of it deliberately withheld from Earth." "For what purpose?" Voss asked, leaning closer. Evelyn hesitated, her throat tightening. "Control," she said softly. "If we can't innovate on our own, we'll always need them. They've built dependence into the very fabric of our society." Voss slammed his fist against the console, the sound reverberating in the confined space. "Damn them! They've turned us into a client state. No, a damn experiment." Evelyn's fingers moved swiftly across the interface, bringing up another file. It showed a series of genetic blueprints, human DNA manipulated with alien markers. "It's worse than that," she said, her voice trembling. "They're not just controlling our technology. They're trying to change us, physically, mentally. This is Project Ascension." For a moment, the room was deathly silent. Voss's face darkened, his usual stoicism giving way to raw anger. "They're rewriting what it means to be human." Evelyn nodded. "And the worst part? They're not even hiding it. They just assumed we'd never have the means to find out." Their conversation was interrupted by the ship's alarm. The holographic display flickered and dissolved as the ship's AI voice rang out. "Alert! Incoming signal detected. Origin unknown. Decryption initiated." Evelyn and Voss exchanged a glance before rushing to the bridge. The main viewport filled with static as the incoming signal struggled to resolve. Then, against the backdrop of Jupiter's swirling storms, an alien figure appeared. It was an Andorian, a member of one of the Council's founding races. The creature's elongated face and pale, glistening skin gave it an almost ghostly appearance. Its voice came through the speakers, smooth yet edged with urgency. "Humans, you are tampering with forces beyond your comprehension." "Who are you?" Voss demanded, stepping forward. "And why the hell are you interfering in our affairs?" The Andorian tilted its head, its black eyes unblinking. "I am Lirvaran, an emissary of the Council. I have been tasked with deterring your reckless actions." Evelyn leaned toward the console. "Deterring? Is that what you call abductions and experiments?" Lirvaran's gaze shifted to her. "Your species has potential, Dr. Kade, but potential must be guided, shaped. Without the Council, your kind would destroy itself within centuries." "That's not your decision to make," Voss shot back. "We deserve the chance to rise or fall on our own terms." The Andorian hesitated for a moment before replying, its tone cold. "Your defiance is noted. But know this, you have drawn the Council's gaze. Your survival is unlikely." The signal cut out abruptly, leaving the bridge in silence. Evelyn sat heavily in her chair, her mind racing. The encounter confirmed her fears. The Council was watching, and they wouldn't hesitate to silence dissent. Voss paced the bridge, his hands balled into fists. "We can't keep running. If we're going to fight back, we need allies. People who hate the Council as much as we do." "But who?" Evelyn asked. Most species rely on the Council. Even if they resent them, they're too afraid to act. Voss stopped pacing and turned to her, his expression hardening. Then we find the ones who've already been burned, the outcasts, the rebels. There's got to be someone out there who's willing to stand with us. Evelyn considered his words. The galaxy was vast, filled with countless civilizations. Surely, among them, there were others who had suffered under the Council's grip. If they could gather enough support, maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. She looked up at Voss, determination flaring in her eyes. Then let's start looking. Signals in the void. They began broadcasting their own signal, a coded message sent across the galaxy's forgotten frequencies, calling for any who had the courage to stand against the Council. It was a desperate gamble, but it was all they had. As the Resolute continued its silent journey through the void, Evelyn watched the transmission logs, waiting for a response. The hours stretched into days, tension mounting with each passing moment of silence. Then finally, a faint reply came through. The signal was weak, fractured by the vast distances it had traveled, but the message was clear. "We hear you. Coordinates attached. Come quickly." Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. "It's a response," she said, turning to Voss. "Someone out there is willing to listen." Voss allowed a faint smile to cross his lips. "Then let's not keep them waiting." Engagement. Question. If you were Evelyn or Voss, would you take the risk of trusting an unknown ally in the void, or keep running? What would your next move be? The Resolute descended into the harsh, rust-colored atmosphere of Mars, its hull groaning against the planet's thin air. Evelyn Kade peered out the viewport at the sprawling expanse of Olympus Base, a once thriving mining colony now repurposed into a resistance stronghold. The colony's lights flickered in the dust storm, illuminating a network of makeshift buildings huddled against the planetary winds. Captain Adrian Voss stood beside her, arms crossed, his expression as impenetrable as ever. "Are you sure about this?" he asked. "No," Evelyn admitted. "But if anyone can help us, it's them. We can't do this alone, Adrian." As the Resolute touched down, Evelyn felt the weight of their mission pressing down on her shoulders. They were fugitives, carrying secrets that could shatter the foundations of the Galactic Council's rule, or get them killed before they could act. And now, they were about to entrust those secrets to strangers. A fractured alliance. The resistance leaders greeted them in the colony's central chamber, a large, dimly lit room reinforced with steel beams scavenged from the old mining rigs. At the head of the table stood Commander Helena Arcos, a former Council liaison who had defected after her planet was annexed. Her dark eyes scrutinized Evelyn and Voss as they approached. "You've stirred up quite a storm," Arcos said, her voice low and steady. "The Council's already sent scouts to the outer colonies looking for you. What makes you think we're willing to put a target on our backs to help you?" Evelyn hesitated, but Voss stepped forward. "Because the Council isn't just controlling resources or crushing rebellion. They're rewriting species. They've been manipulating humanity from the start." Murmurs rippled through the room as Evelyn activated a holo projector, the air above the table filled with images of the data she had stolen. Genetic blueprints, suppression algorithms, and records of abductions labeled as tests. "This is what they're doing to us," Evelyn said, her voice trembling with urgency. "Not just humans. Every species they bring into their fold. If we don't stop them, there won't be a humanity left to save." Arcos studied the projections, her face unreadable. "And you think exposing this will make a difference?" she asked. "It has to," Evelyn said. "But we need your help. You have resources, allies. Together, we can—" "Stop," Arcos held up a hand. "Let me make one thing clear. The Council has crushed every rebellion it's ever faced. They don't negotiate. They annihilate. And now you've brought them to our doorstep." Voss bristled. So what? You'll just keep hiding? Hoping they'll overlook you while they strip the galaxy bare? Arcos's eyes narrowed. Watch your tone, Captain. You came to us, remember? The tension in the room was palpable. Evelyn glanced at Voss, silently pleading for restraint, before turning back to Arcos. Please, she said, if we don't act now, it's over. Not just for us, for everyone. Arcos stared at her for a long moment, then sighed. We'll hear you out, but don't mistake our caution for cowardice. Betrayal in the shadows. Over the next several days, Evelyn and Voss worked closely with the Resistance to analyze the data and plan their next move. But the partnership was fraught with mistrust. Whispers of dissent circulated among the Resistance fighters. Some saw Evelyn as a savior, others as a liability. Late one night, as Evelyn pored over the Council's files in a small, dimly lit lab, a shadow fell across her desk. She looked up to see Nathan Calder, a former engineer turned Resistance operative. He leaned against the doorway, his posture casual. But there was something unsettling in his gaze. Burning the midnight oil, Doctor? He asked, his voice dripping with false warmth. I don't have the luxury of sleep, Evelyn replied, turning back to her work. Calder stepped closer. You're putting a lot of faith in us, trusting that we won't just take what you've brought and hand you over to the Council in exchange for clemency. Evelyn stiffened, but didn't look up. If that's what you're planning, you'll be disappointed. The Council doesn't reward loyalty, they erase it. Calder chuckled, but there was no humor in it. You're naive if you think exposing a few secrets will change anything. The Council's been running this galaxy for millennia. They'll crush you before the truth gets out. Then why are you here? Evelyn asked, finally meeting his gaze. Why fight if you don't believe we can win? For a moment, Calder didn't respond. Then, his expression hardened. Some of us fight because we don't have a choice. But people like you think you're a hero. You're not. You're just another idealist who's going to get a lot of people killed. He turned and walked away, leaving Evelyn alone with his words. She stared at the screen, her resolve shaken. Was she leading them into a fight they couldn't win? Was Calder right? The Hunter's arrival. The next day, the colony's alarms blared, cutting through the morning stillness like a knife. Evelyn and Voss rushed to the control room, where Arcos and her team were monitoring the skies. Council scout ship inbound, one of the technicians reported. It'll breach the atmosphere in 10 minutes. Arcos spun to face Evelyn and Voss. Did you lead them here? We were careful, Voss said. They must have tracked one of your supply ships. Arcos didn't look convinced, but there was no time for accusations. Get to the evac zones, she barked to her team. We can't hold this position against a Council strike force. No, Evelyn said, her voice firm. If we run, they'll just keep coming. We have to stand and fight. Fight? Arcos echoed. With what? Mining equipment and scrap metal? With ingenuity, Evelyn said, and a little luck. The fight for Olympus Base. The Resistance scrambled to prepare defenses. Voss led a team to rig the colony's mining drones with explosives, while Evelyn worked with the technicians to amplify the colony's communication array. We're going to jam their systems, she explained, her fingers flying across the console. If we can blind them, even for a few minutes, it'll give us a chance to strike. As the Council scout ship descended, its sleek, obsidian hull gleaming in the Martian sunlight, the colony's makeshift defenses came online. Explosions erupted in the red dunes, throwing up clouds of dust and debris. The scout ship's energy shields absorbed the initial blasts, but the drones kept coming, swarming like angry hornets. Inside the control room, Evelyn monitored the battle, her heart pounding. Come on, she muttered as the jamming signal finally activated. The scout ship faltered, its targeting systems momentarily blinded. Now, Voss shouted over the comms. The Resistance fighters unleashed a barrage of missiles, their makeshift warheads striking the ship's exposed engines. A deafening explosion rocked the colony as the scout ship spiraled out of control, crashing into the dunes. Cheers erupted across the comms. but Evelyn couldn't bring herself to celebrate. This was only a scout. The Council would send more. The Shattered Alliance. In the aftermath of the battle, tensions reached a boiling point. Several resistance members openly accused Evelyn of endangering the colony, while others hailed her as a hero. Arcos called a meeting to address the growing divide. Evelyn's plan worked, Voss argued. We held them off. That's a win. For now, Calder countered. But what happens when the next ship comes? Or the one after that? We can't keep fighting them. Then what do you suggest? Evelyn asked, her voice sharp. Surrender? Submission? Before Calder could respond, Arcos slammed her hand on the table. Enough. We don't have the luxury of infighting. If we're going to survive, we need to make a choice. Fight or flee. And we need to make it now. Evelyn looked around the room, seeing the fear and uncertainty etched on every face. She felt the weight of their trust and their doubt. Whatever you decide, she said quietly, I'll keep fighting. Because if we don't, the Council wins, and that's a future I refuse to accept. Question is, if you were part of the resistance, would you stay and fight against impossible odds, or cut your losses and flee? What would you choose? Call to action. Enjoying this chapter? Don't forget to like and subscribe to HFY Genesis for more tales of resilience and defiance against impossible odds. The Martian base had weathered the first wave of the Council's assault, but the air within Olympus Base was anything but victorious. The Council's destruction of their scout ship was a hollow win, and tensions between Evelyn Kade, Captain Adrian Voss, and the Resistance leadership continued to bubble beneath the surface. In a small briefing room, Evelyn stared at the holographic projections of their fragmented coalition. Her stolen data sat at the heart of the display, illuminating the monstrous scope of the Council's plans. Despite the firepower of the Resistance, she knew one truth above all. They couldn't win this war alone. Voss entered, the metallic hiss of the door startling her. You've been here all night, he said, pulling up a chair beside her. You need rest. I need allies, Evelyn replied, her voice heavy. Even if we somehow survive the next attack, the Council will send more. They'll keep sending more until we're ashes. We can't hold this alone. Voss leaned forward, studying her face. I know that look. You've got an idea. Evelyn tapped the display, shifting the hologram to show a map of the galaxy. Several points blinked in red. Former colonies, devastated worlds, and resource-poor systems left to rot under the Council's watch. These systems, she said, the Council abandoned them because they didn't see value in them. But they have people who've suffered under the same regime. If we can unite them, we might stand a chance. Voss frowned. And what makes you think they'll trust us? They don't need to trust us, Evelyn said. They need to hate the Council more. The first ship to respond to their broadcast was the Sharikun, a heavily armed freighter piloted by a ragtag crew of mixed alien species. Their leader, Krensak, was a grizzled Galin warrior whose kind had been driven to near extinction by the Council's resource extraction efforts. The Sharikun docked at Olympus Base with a resounding clang, and Evelyn waited nervously as Krensak and his crew stepped out. The Galin stood nearly 7 feet tall, his mottled green skin marked with battle scars, and his piercing yellow eyes fixed on Evelyn. You're the human stirring up all this trouble, Krensak said, his deep voice echoing through the chamber. Evelyn forced herself to meet his gaze. Trouble is the Council's doing, not mine. I'm just exposing it. Krensak let out a low, rumbling chuckle. You've got fire. I respect that. But fire won't be enough to burn down an empire. Maybe not, Evelyn said, but it's a start. And if you join us, that fire will grow. Krensak tilted his head, considering her words. You're bold, human. I'll give you that. But if you betray us, if this is a trap, I'll make sure you live long enough to regret it. Evelyn nodded, swallowing her fear. Deal. Over the next few weeks, Evelyn and Voss reached out to more potential allies, transmitting their message across the galaxy's forgotten corners. The response was uneven. Some systems ignored them, others outright rejected their pleas. But a few answered. Among them were the Shilvani, a nomadic species who had lost their homeworld to the Council centuries ago. The Zirians, renowned engineers driven to the fringes of space, and a faction of defectors from the Andorian race who secretly despised the Council's authoritarian rule. Each new ally brought their own tensions and challenges. The Garland distrusted the Shilvani, the Zirians balked at the Andorian defectors, and everyone questioned whether humanity had the strength to lead this rebellion. Evelyn found herself thrust into the role of mediator, constantly navigating the minefield of competing interests and egos. Late one night, she confided in Voss as they stood on the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "I don't know if I can do this," she admitted. "Every decision I make feels like it's one step away from falling apart." Voss placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "You're doing more than anyone else ever dared to. You're bringing them together. That's no small feat." "But is it enough?" Evelyn whispered. "It will be," Voss said firmly, "because you'll make it enough." Tensions came to a head during a joint training exercise designed to integrate their forces. The Andorian defectors leader, Lirai, had suggested a new formation for their starfighter squadrons, but Krensak dismissed it as a waste of time. Heated words turned into a full-blown argument on the training grounds, with fighters from both factions ready to draw weapons. Evelyn intervened, stepping between the two leaders. "Enough!" she shouted, her voice cutting through the din. "We don't have the luxury of infighting. If we can't work together, we're doomed." Krensak glared at her. "You're asking us to trust Andorians, the same race that enslaved my people." "And I'm asking Lirai to trust you," Evelyn shot back. "Both of you have reasons to hate each other, but you have one thing in common. You hate the Council more. That has to be enough." Lirai stepped forward, her expression guarded. "You speak of unity, but unity doesn't erase centuries of betrayal." "No, it doesn't," Evelyn admitted. "But it's the only way we win. If we don't fight together, we'll all lose." The two leaders stared at each other for a long moment, the tension palpable. Then, reluctantly, Krensak extended a hand. Lirai hesitated, then clasped it. "This doesn't make us friends," Krensak growled. "It makes us allies," Lirai replied. Evelyn let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. It was a small victory, but it was a start. The forge with the alliances slowly solidifying, the coalition began to take shape. The Zirians provided cutting-edge technology, retrofitting the coalition's ships with advanced weaponry and stealth systems. The Shilvani taught them guerrilla tactics, using their centuries of nomadic survival to outmaneuver larger fleets. The Andorian defectors shared intelligence on Council operations, giving them a crucial edge. Evelyn worked tirelessly alongside them, her initial doubts tempered by the growing strength of their forces. For the first time, she allowed herself to hope. One night, as the Coalition's flagship, dubbed the Vanguard, was unveiled, Voss found her in the command center, staring at the ship's gleaming hull. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Evelyn corrected. "But this is just the beginning. The real fight is still ahead." Voss nodded. "And we'll face it together." The call to action. As the Coalition prepared for its first mission, a raid on a Council supply depot, Evelyn addressed the assembled forces. Her voice carried through the hangar, amplified by the quiet determination in her tone. "The Council wants us divided," she said. "They've spent centuries pitting us against each other, making us believe we're powerless. But they were wrong." She looked out at the faces before her, human, alien, scarred, and determined. "Today we prove them wrong. Today we take the first step toward a galaxy where no one is a pawn in their game. Today we fight not as humans or Galan or Andorians. We fight as one." The hangar erupted in cheers, the sound reverberating through the base. Evelyn felt a spark of hope ignite in her chest. They weren't just a group of rebels anymore. They were a force to be reckoned with. Question is, if you were in Evelyn's shoes, How would you handle the fragile alliances within the coalition? Could you trust those who once served the enemy? Enjoying this chapter? Don't forget to like and subscribe to HFY Genesis for more tales of courage, unity, and defiance. The Coalition's victory at the Council Supply Depot had sent ripples across the galaxy. For the first time in centuries, an organized rebellion had struck a decisive blow against the seemingly invincible Galactic Council. Evelyn Kade, Captain Adrian Voss, and their allies now stood at a precipice, poised to expose the Council's inner workings to a galaxy that had long feared their power. But with every step forward, the stakes grew higher. In the dimly lit command center of the Vanguard, Evelyn pored over the latest intelligence reports. Lines of data and intercepted communications illuminated the room in a soft blue glow. The Council's movements were erratic, uncoordinated even. "They're panicking," Evelyn muttered to herself. "They're adapting," Voss corrected, stepping into the room. His presence was steadying, but his face carried the weight of their situation. "This isn't over. If anything, it's about to get worse." Evelyn nodded. "But we've done something they never expected. We've shaken their unity. These reports show growing divisions within the Council ranks, factions arguing over how to deal with us." Voss leaned over her shoulder, studying the data. "If those cracks are real, we need to exploit them." "Agreed," Evelyn said. "But it's a gamble. If we fail..." Voss placed a hand on her shoulder. "We won't." The Coalition's next move was both daring and dangerous. Infiltrate a council meeting held in a remote orbital station above a dying star. Intelligence suggested that certain council factions were questioning their leadership's methods, an opportunity to gather critical information and perhaps turn those divisions into an advantage. Evelyn and Voss led a small team, including Lear, the Andorian defector, and Krensak, the Garlin warrior. Their transport? A stealth-modified freighter, glided silently through the void. "This is madness," Krensak grumbled, checking the blade strapped to his side. "You think the Council's going to just let us waltz in and sow discord?" "No," Evelyn replied. "But they've underestimated us before. If we can plant seeds of doubt in the right places, it might be enough to tip the scales." Lear, seated across from them, tilted her head thoughtfully. "There are whispers within the Andorian delegation. Not all of them are loyal to the High Arbiter. If we can reach them..." "It's a long shot," Voss said, "but it's all we've got." Inside the beast, the station's Grand Council chamber was a stark contrast to the Coalition's humble war rooms. Towering spires of polished metal loomed over a circular platform where delegates from dozens of species convened. Holographic projections filled the air with charts, star maps, and intricate models of Council fleets. Evelyn's heart pounded as she and her team blended into the shadows of the observation deck. From this vantage point, they could see the councilors seated in their ornate chairs, their alien features reflecting both wisdom and hubris. The High Arbiter, Zavros, a towering figure with silver skin and piercing black eyes, stood at the center. His voice was calm, but carried an edge of authority that demanded obedience. "The rebellion is a minor nuisance," Zavros declared. "A flare of insolence that will be extinguished as all others have been." A murmur spread through the chamber. Not everyone shared Zavros's confidence. "Minor nuisance," came a sharp retort from Councillor Relic, a reptilian ambassador from the Turvon sector. "They've struck at the heart of our supply lines. The colonies are questioning our ability to protect them." Zavros's gaze turned icy. "The colonies question us because we tolerate weakness in this council. Let me remind you, Councillor Relic, that unity is the foundation of our strength. Dissension will not be tolerated." Evelyn exchanged a glance with Voss. These divisions were deeper than they had hoped, planting seeds of doubt. As the debate raged on, Evelyn activated a hidden transmitter. Her goal was to broadcast the stolen data, proof of the Council's genetic manipulations and oppressive practices, to every delegate in the room. Lear worked quickly. patching the transmitter into the station's mainframe. "Almost there?" she whispered. A sudden voice broke through the din. "You speak of unity, Zavros," said Counselor Tyria, a lithe, insectoid diplomat with iridescent wings. "But unity cannot be maintained through lies. There are rumors. Rumors that the Council has withheld critical information about its activities. If these accusations are true, we must know." Zavros's expression darkened. "Those who traffic in rumors sow chaos. The Council does not answer to baseless speculation." "That's where you're wrong," Evelyn whispered, pressing the final command. The chamber's holograms flickered, replaced by a cascade of images. Human DNA spliced with alien markers, colonies stripped bare of resources, and classified reports detailing the Council's suppression of technological advancement. Gasps filled the air as the delegates absorbed the revelations. "This is an outrage," Relic hissed. "Is this true?" Tyria demanded, her wings fluttering in agitation. Zavros's voice boomed over the chaos. "This is a fabrication, a desperate act by traitors seeking to undermine our authority." But the doubt was palpable. Evelyn could see it in the shifting gazes and hushed conversations among the delegates. The Council was no longer a monolith. It was fracturing. The escape. The team's triumph was short-lived. Security alarms blared as Zavros ordered the station locked down. Evelyn and her team bolted from the observation deck, weaving through the labyrinthine corridors. "They know we're here!" Voss shouted. "Keep moving!" Evelyn yelled back. The corridors echoed with the pounding footsteps of Council enforcers. Krensak turned, hurling a plasma grenade that erupted into a blinding flash, buying them precious seconds. "This way!" Lerai called, leading them toward the docking bay. The Vanguard's shuttle waited, its engines already humming. As the team boarded, Council forces burst into the bay, weapons blazing. Voss returned fire, covering Evelyn and the others as they scrambled aboard. "Go, go, go!" Voss shouted as the shuttle's doors sealed. The shuttle rocketed away, its stealth systems activating just as the Council's ships closed in. Evelyn collapsed into a seat, her chest heaving. "We did it," she said, though her voice was tinged with exhaustion. "We planted the seed. A fractured Council." Back aboard the Vanguard, Evelyn and Voss reviewed the fallout. Reports indicated that several Council factions had withdrawn their support for Zavros, demanding an investigation into the leaked data. The rebellion's broadcast had reached farther than they had dared to hope, igniting unrest across the galaxy. But victory came at a cost. Zavros had declared the coalition an existential threat, mobilizing the full might of the Council's fleet to crush them. "We've bought time," Voss said, "but we've also painted a target on our backs." Evelyn nodded, her gaze fixed on the star map. "The Council is weaker than it's ever been, but so are we. If we're going to win this, we need to hit them where it hurts, at their heart." Voss frowned. "The Citadel." "The Citadel," Evelyn confirmed. "We end this at the source." The galaxy's stars shimmered against the backdrop of the Council's Citadel, a monolithic fortress orbiting a dying red star. Its spires jutted into the void like talons, radiating an aura of unassailable power. For centuries, this citadel had symbolized the Galactic Council's dominion, its shadow falling over countless civilizations. But tonight, that shadow was about to burn. Evelyn Kade stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, staring at the citadel on the holographic display. Her coalition's fleet, an eclectic armada of retrofitted freighters, stolen warships, and experimental fighters, hung in the void, dwarfed by the citadel's mass. "This is it," Captain Adrian Voss said, his voice low but steady. "All or nothing." Evelyn nodded, her mind racing with the enormity of what lay ahead. They were outnumbered, outgunned, and fighting an enemy with millennia of experience in crushing rebellion. But they had one thing the Council did not: unity born of shared pain and a burning desire for freedom. "Open the comms," Evelyn said, fleet-wide. The communications officer nodded, and a soft chime indicated the line was live. "This is Evelyn Kade," she began, her voice firm despite the storm in her chest. "Today, we stand on the edge of history. The Council has ruled through fear and lies for too long, but they made one critical mistake. They underestimated us." She paused, letting the weight of her words settle. "They think they can break us because we're different species, different worlds. But it's those differences that make us strong. Together, we will show them that their time is over. Together, we will light a fire among the stars." The fleet erupted in cheers, the comms filled with shouts of defiance and determination. Evelyn closed the channel and turned to Voss. "Let's finish this," she said. The Council's response was immediate. Squadrons of sleek black ships poured out of the Citadel's docking bays, their energy cannons flaring to life. The Coalition fleet surged forward to meet them, a chaotic dance of light and fire exploding across the void. Evelyn clutched the edge of the console as the Vanguard shuddered under enemy fire. "Shields holding at 75%, the tactical officer reported. "Target their command ships," Voss ordered. "We need to disrupt their coordination." The Vanguard's cannons roared, sending bright streaks of plasma toward the enemy fleet. Nearby, Krensak's ship, the Sherikkun, barreled through the fray, its massive turrets tearing through enemy fighters. Evelyn's eyes darted to the display. The Coalition was holding its own, but the Council's reinforcements were relentless. For every enemy ship destroyed, another seemed to take its place. "This isn't sustainable," Voss muttered. "We need to hit the Citadel directly." Evelyn nodded. "It's the only way. Patch me through to the strike team." Deep inside the Coalition fleet, a stealth shuttle broke away from the chaos, its engines humming faintly as it approached the Citadel's outer defenses. Aboard the shuttle, Leari led a team of elite operatives, including Krensak and a pair of Shilvani scouts. Approaching the docking bay, the pilot whispered, "Sensors are still scrambled, but we need to move fast." Leari checked her gear, her antennae twitching with nervous energy. "Remember, our goal is the control core. We disable that, and the Citadel's defenses will go down," Krensak grunted. "Easier said than done." The shuttle slipped through a gap in the Citadel's patrol patterns, landing softly in a maintenance bay. The team disembarked, their boots barely making a sound on the cold metal floor. The bay was eerily quiet, but the faint hum of machinery reminded them that they were deep within enemy territory. "Move!" Leari hissed, leading the team into the labyrinthine corridors of the Citadel. Back in space, the battle raged on. Evelyn watched as a Coalition frigate collided with a Council cruiser, the resulting explosion lighting up the battlefield. "We're losing too many ships," she shouted. "Where's the strike team?" Voss pointed to the display. "They've breached the outer defenses, but they're running out of time." Evelyn gritted her teeth. "Divert power to the forward shields. We're taking the Vanguard in." The bridge crew exchanged uneasy glances, but no one argued. The Vanguard surged forward, its cannons blazing as it carved a path through the enemy lines. Evelyn's heart pounded with every impact, but she refused to waver. "This is our chance," she said, more to herself than anyone else. "We can't let it slip away." Inside the Citadel, the strike team reached the control core, a massive chamber filled with towering consoles and pulsating energy conduits. The air crackled with power, and the room was bathed in an eerie red light. "This is it," Leari said, approaching the main console. "Cover me while I—" Before she could finish, the doors slammed shut, and a squad of Council enforcers stormed in. Krensak roared, charging forward with his blade, while the Shilvani scouts darted to cover, firing their plasma rifles. "Hold them off!" Leari shouted, her fingers flying across the console. "I need 2 minutes!" Krensak fought like a force of nature, his blade cutting through the enforcers with brutal efficiency. But the enemy's numbers were overwhelming, and the team was forced to fall back toward the core. "We're running out of time," one of the Shilvani shouted. "Almost there," Leari replied, her voice tense. Just as the enforcers closed in, the console emitted a sharp chime. The red light flickered, replaced by a soft blue glow. "Core disabled!" Lerai shouted. "Let's move!" The team retreated, leaving the control room in disarray. As they ran, Krensak looked back, his face grim. "They'll be on us before we reach the shuttle." Lerai glanced at the detonator in her hand. "Then we make sure they don't follow." With the Citadel's defenses down, the Coalition fleet pressed their advantage. The Council's ships faltered as their coordination crumbled, and the tide of battle began to shift. On the vanguard, Evelyn's heart swelled with hope as the Citadel's shields flickered and fell. "They did it," she whispered. "The strike team did it." Voss grinned, his grip tightening on the console. "Let's finish this." The Coalition fleet surged forward, focusing their fire on the Citadel. Explosions rippled across its surface, tearing through the once impenetrable fortress. Inside the Citadel, the strike team reached the shuttle just as the station began to collapse. Lerai activated the detonator, and the core room erupted in a blinding explosion, ensuring the Citadel's destruction. As the Citadel's remains drifted into the void, the Coalition fleet regrouped. The cost of victory had been high. Many ships lay in ruins, and countless lives had been lost. But for the first time, the Galactic Council's grip on the galaxy had been broken. Evelyn stood on the bridge, staring out at the wreckage. Her chest ached with both grief and hope. "We did it," she said softly. "We lit the fire." Voss placed a hand on her shoulder. "This isn't the end. The Council's still out there, but now they know we're not afraid." Evelyn nodded, her gaze fixed on the horizon. The fight was far from over, but they had taken the first critical step toward a free galaxy. Question is, would you have the courage to lead an assault against an enemy as powerful as the Galactic Council? How would you ensure your victory wasn't in vain? Call to action. Enjoying this chapter? Don't forget to like and subscribe to HFY Genesis for more tales of defiance, unity, and hope among the stars. The battlefield lay silent. The once mighty citadel of the Galactic Council was now a smoldering ruin, its debris scattered among the stars like a shattered crown. For the first time in centuries, the symbol of the Council's dominance had fallen. But at what cost? Evelyn Kade stood on the observation deck of the Vanguard, her reflection barely visible against the void. The weight of the moment pressed on her shoulders. Around her, the crew moved with subdued urgency, tending to wounded comrades and calculating their next steps. They had won a great victory, but the scars of battle ran deep. Captain Adrian Voss approached, his steps heavy but determined. "You should get some rest," he said. Evelyn shook her head. "Not yet. There's too much to do." "You've done enough for one lifetime," Voss replied, placing a hand on her shoulder. "We all have." Evelyn turned to face him, her expression unreadable. "It doesn't feel like enough. The Council's fleet is still out there. Their allies will regroup." This was a blow, but it wasn't the end. "No," Voss agreed. "But it was the beginning. And beginnings are enough to build on." The cost of freedom. Later, Evelyn addressed the Coalition's leaders via a holographic assembly. Krensak, Lerai, and representatives from dozens of species filled the room with their varied forms, their holographic images shimmering like ghostly specters. "We've struck a blow against the Council," Evelyn began, her voice steady despite her exhaustion. "But let's not deceive ourselves. This war is far from over. The Council will retaliate. They will try to divide us, to make us doubt what we've accomplished here today." A murmur of agreement rippled through the assembly, but there was unease in the air. "Many of us have lost more than we can bear," Lerai said, her tone somber. "Friends, families, entire worlds. If we're to continue, we must decide what we're fighting for. Is it vengeance or something greater?" Evelyn met Lerai's gaze. "It's not vengeance," she said firmly. "It's freedom. Not just for us, but for every species the Council has ever subjugated. It's a chance to create a galaxy, where no one lives in fear of their rulers." Krensak snorted. "Noble words, but words won't rebuild our fleets or feed our people. What's the plan, Kade?" Evelyn hesitated, the enormity of the question weighing on her. "We regroup, we rebuild, and we send a message to every corner of the galaxy. A message that the Council's reign is not unchallenged. We show them that there's hope." A new threat. As the Coalition worked to repair their ships and rally support, news arrived from the outer colonies. Council loyalists were launching brutal crackdowns, targeting any planet suspected of harboring rebel sympathies. Entire cities were razed and millions were displaced. Evelyn sat with Voss in the Vanguard's war room, staring at the grim reports. "They're trying to make an example of anyone who defies them," she said, her voice laced with anger. "They're scared," Voss replied. "Scared of what we've started. And we can't let them crush it," Evelyn said. She tapped the console, pulling up a map of the galaxy. "We need to move fast. If we let them regain control, everything we've fought for will be for nothing." Voss leaned back, studying her. "You know what you're asking? A counteroffensive now will stretch us to the breaking point." "I know," Evelyn said quietly. "But if we don't act, the Council will destroy every spark of resistance before it can take root." Voss sighed, running a hand through his hair. "Then we'll make it work. Somehow." The speech Evelyn called for a fleet-wide assembly, her image broadcast to every ship, every outpost, and every colony that had joined their cause. She stood in the Vanguard's command center, her hands clasped tightly behind her back. "Today we face a choice," she began. "We can stand back and lick our wounds, or we can move forward, together. The Council wants us to believe we're weak, that we're alone, but we've already proven them wrong. The fall of their citadel showed the galaxy that their power is not absolute." Her gaze swept across the room, her voice rising with conviction. "They will try to break us with fear. They will try to divide us with lies. But as long as we stand together, as long as we believe in each other, they will fail." A cheer erupted from the crowd, echoing through the ship. Evelyn felt a flicker of hope ignite in her chest. For all their losses, for all their pain, they had found something the Council could never take from them: unity. Over the next several weeks, the Coalition launched a series of targeted strikes against Council strongholds, liberating oppressed colonies and dismantling key supply chains. The galaxy began to shift. Planets once ruled by fear started to speak out, declaring their allegiance to the rebellion. But with every victory came new challenges. Managing the Coalition's growing ranks proved increasingly difficult as old rivalries flared and resources ran thin. Evelyn spent sleepless nights mediating disputes and strategizing with her advisors, her resolve tested at every turn. One night, she stood alone in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. Voss joined her, his presence a quiet comfort. "You don't have to carry this alone," he said. "I know," Evelyn replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "But sometimes it feels like I do." Voss placed a hand on her shoulder. "You've done more than anyone could have asked of you. But this isn't just your fight, it's ours, and we'll see it through together." The Coalition's greatest challenge came not from the Council, but from within. As more systems joined the rebellion, questions arose about what would come after the war. Would the galaxy fracture into warring factions, or could they build something lasting? Evelyn addressed these concerns in a meeting of the Coalition's leaders. "This isn't just about toppling the Council," she said. "It's about creating a future where no one suffers as we have. A future built on trust, not tyranny." "And who decides what that future looks like?" Krensak asked, his tone skeptical. "We all do," Evelyn replied. "Together." In the end, the Coalition's unity proved stronger than the Council's might. After years of struggle, the rebellion achieved a decisive victory, forcing the Council to surrender and dismantle its authoritarian regime. Evelyn stood before a crowd of billions on a liberated world, her image broadcast across the galaxy. "This victory belongs to all of us," she said, her voice carrying the weight of history. "But our work is far from over. Freedom is not a destination, it's a journey, and together, we will walk that path no matter how long it takes." The crowd erupted in cheers, their voices echoing across the stars. As the celebration continued, Evelyn found a quiet moment to herself. She stood on a balcony overlooking the crowd, her heart heavy with both pride and sorrow. So much had been lost to reach this point, and the road ahead was uncertain. Voss joined her, his expression soft. "You did it," he said. "We did it," Evelyn corrected. He nodded, a small smile playing at his lips. "What now?" Evelyn gazed up at the stars, her eyes shining with determination. "Now, we build something better." Thank you for joining us on this epic journey. What would you do in Evelyn's shoes? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and most importantly, subscribe to HFY Genesis to support the channel and never miss more incredible stories. Your support fuels the next adventure. Together, let's keep the fire alive.